Hi, thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be taking a look at contact scoring profiles. Contact scoring profiles are where we are looking at contacts and leads inside of the Sales Fusion CRM. We are scoring on people that exist in the CRM as well as people who have been cookied by the Sales Fusion system. The purposes of creating scoring profiles are a couple. Main purposes are to do lead qualification, where you're watching a person's marketing activities, seeing what they're doing with your campaigns and your dialogues and web activity. You're giving them a score, and then as that score gets higher, they get more qualified as a lead and you have particular actions occur. The other main purpose of creating a contact scoring profile is so that you are able to automatically nurture somebody as they, again, their score gets higher as they go. If somebody is in a very low range, you might just send them some additional nurture campaigns to get them to engage with you a little bit more. As it gets higher, you might want to create opportunities, you might want to create activities, you might want to alert the owner. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be walking through and creating a basic contact scoring profile, and we're going to be talking about some of the best practices, some of the ways that you really need to look at how to create a contact scoring profile. Under the lead analyzer here, we have profiles. This is where I'm going to start. Over to the right-hand side, I'm going to select New, and I'm going to create a new contact scoring profile. You do want to make sure your scoring profile names are something unique. I am a big fan of dates, so I'm going to use today's date, and we'll call this Contact Training. Profile type, if you're doing an account, you would do an account, but we're doing a contact. And I always suggest that you keep your scoring profile inactive until you are 100% ready to turn it on. The reason for that is you don't want to be playing around or testing a scoring profile and leave all these actions alive and have them actually occur when you didn't mean for them to. So stay inactive until you're absolutely ready. And then, of course, you can put in a more in-depth description for organization. I'm just going to copy and paste for right now. Click on Save, and it's going to take us inside the contact scoring properties, and this is what we're going to take a look at and discuss. There are lots of options, so I do want to run through some of these options. It brought over the name, the status, and the description. This option, Web Only, you would check if you only want a record to be rescored if they have web activity. There are 4 items that tell the system it's time to rescore a record according to the parameters that you set in the scoring profile. The first thing is web activity. If web activity occurs, we know we need to rescore the record. Second is if somebody opens an email sent from Sales Fusion, whether it's a drip, a trigger, email, individual, doesn't matter. That signals to the system it's time to rescore. Clicking on an email campaign also triggers a rescore, as well as completing a dialogue. Simply changing data, if I were to change the status of a lead or contact, does not tell the system it needs to be rescored. So knowing that will help you understand when and how a record is getting scored. Show on marketing dashboard. If you want this record to be shown on the particular dashboard of that contact or lead record, then you would need to have this checked. And contact rollup, if you hover over this, it says it applies to contacts and leads with duplicate email addresses. Basically, if this is checked, duplicates will always have the same score on all records. If it is unchecked and the information is different, they might have different scores. Up here we have Map to CRM fields. This is important if you want to map the score back to the contact or lead table. You don't have to. It's an option. It says do not map. But please keep in mind that you will not be able to query or run reports or run the call down list if you're not mapping that score back. If you do want to map it back, if you're using the Sales Fusion CRM, we have a field already created for you called Score. If you are using an external CRM system, like a Microsoft CRM, a Salesforce.com, a Sage, a Sugar, any of those, you will need to create a custom field inside of your CRM. And on the very next sync, we will pull it down into Sales Fusion, and you will see it available here in this drop-down. External CRM users cannot use our score field because that score field does not exist inside of your CRM. We also have a map summary to CRM field, which goes hand in hand with the score. This field was created because we had some customers come to us and say, you're mapping my score over, which is fantastic. However, the sales team doesn't quite understand what that number means. I know what it means because I set it up, but the sales team doesn't. So the scoring summary is a way for you to get additional information about the scoring range that the person is currently in, and again, let the sales team know. For example, if my record, I had a score of 20, the sales team off the top of their head would have no idea if that's good or bad. But if the scoring summary that went along with it said hot lead, they would immediately know that that was a good thing, 20 was a good thing, and that they should take action or initiative. Again, if you're using the Sales Fusion system or if you're using an external CRM, you do need to create a custom field for this value to be mapped to. So no matter what CRM, you have to create a custom field. Scoring history. By default, we will score everything no matter how old the activity is. For some of you, it may not matter because you may have just started with Sales Fusion. However, for others, you may have been around for a couple years. If you leave this as 0, we will score everything, no matter how far back it goes. If you put a number in here, let's say 90, it's only going to score activity that occurred within the past 90 days. And of course, it stays current to the date that it rescores. I tell people a best practice on this is to look at your sales cycle, see how long your sales cycle is, and then plan appropriately. We have a customer who sells medical devices, and the length of their sales cycle is many years because it's such a long, drawn-out process. So for them, they would want to score everything. We'll say for Sales Fusion that we have a shorter sales cycle. Maybe it takes 45 days. In that case, maybe we only want to look at the past 120 days worth of activity. Again, this is up to you. Refresh requested. If this is checked and you hit save and stay and or save and return, then it will go back through and rescore your entire database. Most people, this is the last thing that you're setting up in your Sales Fusion account. So if you do want to go back and rescore everybody, you definitely can. And then we also have a date range where you are defining the start date and the end date for the scoring profile. If you don't have it checked, obviously we will score it indefinitely. Moving down a little bit further, you can see that we start to have some sub-tabs. We have lead routing, web activity, campaigns, dialogues, events, and data. This is where we're going to decide what activities in particular do we really want to score on. Starting with the web activity, we obviously have a lot of different things that you can score. We're going to look at the scoring details, come over here and select New. And you're going to see from the first drop-down that we have some options. Downloads and forms and surveys. These are used if you are using externally hosted forms, meaning that you have another form system that's using your forms other than the Sales Fusion dialogues. Or if you have a download that you're tracking and we're not hosting it, then you would pick one of those. You would enter a rule name. So I'm going to call this one, we'll call this one external download. And then you would enter the target, and the target would be the page name. Please keep in mind that you cannot put in a PDF here. I can't have product.pdf. Whatever you put in here has to have the ability to have the Sales Fusion tagging script on the page. PDFs are not HTML. You can't add a tracking script to it. However, you could add a blank page in front of the PDF, put our script on the blank page, and track as the person goes through it. These are the types of things that you need to keep in mind as you're wanting to score. You then assign a number of points. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to pretend that this was an HTML page. And we'll see if I can spell product. And then you assigned a number of scores. The point system is completely up to you. You can assign 1 point, 2 points, 10 points, 5 points, 20 points, 100 points. The point system comes into play when we get into the lead routing, and I will explain that a little bit further as we go. So for this, let's say this was a very important page for us, so we'll assign maybe 2 points or 3 points. Scoring summary, it says by selecting the scoring summary, you are only scoring for the last hit. Otherwise, it will score for every hit. For example, if I touched this product page today, I'd get 3 points. If this is unchecked and I touch this page tomorrow, I now have 6 points. I touch it on Saturday as well, I now have 9 points. If this is checked, then even though I hit those pages 3 times, I only still have 3 points. That choice is up to you, just trying to explain the options. Enabled is a good thing. That means it's enabled to be scored. And then you can add additional scoring notes if you choose to, which would be shown on the marketing dashboard. Let's click on Save. Let's do another one. We're going to select New again. It's going to open up our pop-up window. And let's go down to Target Page. Target Page is you're also scoring on the page name again. Rule name can be anything you want. Now there is a little line here that says you can score on any page that contains our analytics code just by typing in the word any, which is probably a good thing to do unless you want to go through and manually enter all of the pages on your website, which a lot of people don't want to do. So if I leave this as any and I come over here, any page that gets touched would receive X number of points. So if I say OK, it's going to be any and 1 page. Hit Save. That means if I go to this page and then I go to this page, that's 3 pages I touched. The home page, the second page, and this third page. That's 3 points that I would receive simply because I touched those pages. You do have to look at your website as what would a lead or prospect be looking at. Are there any pages that are more important to you than others? For example, our pricing page is very important to us. If somebody is looking at our pricing page, that immediately tells us, hey, this person has a really good interest in our system. However, we do have a careers page. Careers, in my opinion, I don't think a lead or prospect would probably go there. So maybe in that case, I'd assign a few negative points and knock them down a little bit. Let's say I do want to score on my pricing page. I would grab the page name. And again, some people want to grab this entire URL. That is not correct. You grab everything from after your domain, including the backslash, on. I then select New. I go to my target page again. This will be our pricing page. And I paste it right in there. Assign however many points I see fit, and hit Save. You can also do it based on page title. So if I wanted to select another one, and I didn't want to do the page name, I wanted to do the page title. Page title is what renders up here in the browser. This one is called Subscription Pricing, Vertical Line, Sales Fusion Website. If that's what I wanted to score on, then I would type that right in here. I would type in Subscription Pricing, do the vertical line, and Sales Fusion Website. If I had a page, we'll go with a products page, and on this products page, I want to score on every single one of these. That's a lot of pages to add one by one. So in that case, you might want to look for a common factor in either the page name or the page title to see if you can do a wildcard. Example of that is if you see this one, it says Sales Fusion Website. If I go to another product, you'll again, if I hover over it, see that it says Sales Fusion Website. Go to another product, it again says Sales Fusion Website. So I could potentially come in here and instead of doing it spelled out exactly, do Sales Fusion Website with a % sign in front of it and a % sign after it. It would score any page that was touched that contained this in the page title. Lots of options here. As I mentioned, you could also do negative points. If I wanted to say, if they touch my careers page, give them negative points to knock them down just a little bit and make it a little bit harder to get back up. So we do something like careers, and I'm just going to make up a name here, but what it was called careers.html. And then here, I would simply say -10 and save. They touch the careers page, they get knocked down 10 points. We also have some additional options down here under the web page's property scoring, and when I select New, you'll see that we have an age of relevance, which is very similar to the history here, which is the scoring history days. You can do it in either place. They both do the same thing. We also have single session total time, where it's looking at the individual session, the unique session, and it's captured in seconds. So you could do something like greater than 300 seconds, greater than 500 seconds. I do have a couple best practice suggestions. One is monitor your Web Forensics Tracker tab. Start looking randomly at people's duration, how long they're staying there, because if you are saying greater than 800 seconds and nobody's on your website for more than 200 seconds, you're making it a little high. So you need to really kind of evaluate the current activity on your website to be able to properly score. That also being said, you need to understand that if a person touches one page on our website, just one on your website, we automatically default the duration to 180 seconds. If a person touches multiple pages, then the very last page that they touch will automatically default to 60 seconds. So you probably wouldn't want to put in 120 seconds and give them 100 points because, oh my goodness, they're a huge lead prospect at that time. It's not the best judge. One other thing that I like to mention to people that they don't often think about is a lot of times people leave their internet browsers open. They leave it open over lunch. They might leave it open overnight. I know that when I close out my browser at the end of the day, I have probably between 10 and 20 different tabs open where I've been sitting on people's websites all day long. Not suggesting don't score on time. I would just not use it as the only measure of gauging somebody's interest as a lead or prospect. So we'll say for this one, greater than 300, maybe give them just 2 extra points. We also have, under New, the ability to score on total pages. And this is how many pages did the person actively look at, which is a little bit better of a gauge. So we would do greater than, and we would say 5, or greater than 4, or greater than 2, or 10, or whatever it may be. And again, I would highly recommend checking your Web Forensics and your Web Tracker to figure out what number is appropriate for your website. Moving over to the right, we also have email campaigns, and this is where you can score on quite a few different options with campaigns sent from within the SalesFusion system. We have a campaign score where this is looking at individual campaigns and whether they've been opened or clicked. If you have a very important campaign that's been going out and you want to score heavier than other campaigns, this is when you would add an individual one here. So we'll say 4 points for open, 2 points for clicks. And again, you can add in your scoring notes. That's for individual campaigns. Our second panel is called Generic Campaign Scoring, and this is looking at all the campaigns, emails, drips, triggers, individual emails sent from within SalesFusion. You can do a generic open rule, where you're saying for any campaign that leaves the SalesFusion platform for your account, give them X number of points for opening them. If you send me 5 campaigns over the past, next 2 weeks, and I open each one of them, I'd have 5 points. You can also do the same thing for clicks. Click rule. Any campaign that leaves the system and clicks clicked would get X number of points. We also have a campaign click-through score. Now this is looking at any click on any link contained within the emails. We can get even more granular, and we can say, we don't want to score on any click, we want to score on a particular click. So we could find our invite, we'll find our webinar, we'll go with this one for right now. Let me see if I can find one. With your campaigns that you're going to be choosing, what you would do is you would have links inside of it that would be populated here. So if I had a link to my website, a link to the forward to a friend, a link to an asset, they would all be populated here. I would choose my link, and I would sign a number of scores. I don't have any, so I'm just going to close this one out. You can also do a wildcard campaign score. There are times when people do very similar campaigns that they go out frequently, and instead of having to come in here and add one all the time, they could instead do something like an opens campaign wildcard. We would call this one, let's just go with a newsletter example, and we would say, okay, we're going to look for any campaign that contains the word newsletter, and it's looking in the campaign name. If it contains newsletter and it was open, they would get X number of points. Again, the wildcard prevents you from having to come in and list your campaigns one by one all the time after sending out if you have a common factor. Moving over to dialogues, we have dialogue scoring where you can score on responses of how people are completing your actual dialogues. You would find your dialogue. We'll go with my training one here. It's going to ask you what question would you like to score on what page. We'll go with current CRM. Choose your Boolean operator, and then choose your value. I'm going to just put in Salesforce.com, and then give X number of points. If you want to add more, you can. Just keep clicking on New. We also have generic dialogue scoring. With generic dialogue scoring, I'm going to select New. And this is saying for any dialogue that is created inside of the Sales Fusion system, if it's completed, give X number of points. If it's started, then you can give points as well. So you have a lot of options here. Moving right along, our next area over here is the events. The events is tied to the event management module. If you do not have a subscription to that, the events are not going to do anything for you. This is where you can score on a particular event, on a particular session, and then you can say if they register, if they attend, if they follow up, this is the score that they're going to get. Then you can also go to data column, and this is looking at fields from the contact or lead table only. We are not taking into account any fields that exist on any other table. Web activity, campaigner, even the accounts table has to exist on the contact lead table. You get to the column name, you would choose your column, and then you would choose your operator, your value, and assign your points. With this, I tell people that you should think about talking to your sales team and asking them when they open up a record to make a phone call, what fields are they paying close attention to see if this person is qualified? Are they looking at industry? Are they looking at title? Are they looking at the unsubscribed status? And those are the types of items that you can score on in the data. Once we have what we're going to be scoring on, and you can choose to use one aspect of this or many aspects of the activities, you want to create the lead routing, which is where you're going to define what is going to happen as the person actually starts getting the score together. Usually there are between 2 to 3 scoring groups in a default contact scoring profile. We're going to call this one our low interest group, and this can be anything that you want. Here's your scoring summary, which again gives additional information to the sales rep. And then you would choose your begin range and your end range. The begin range is something that you need to think about. Okay, here's the number of points I was assigning. How can somebody get to a particular number to start getting into these groups? For example, I might want to say from 1 to 15. Means that they're engaging just a little bit, but not too much. Maybe from 1 to 15, I want to nurture them a little bit more. So I'm saying when they hit, or if they hit between this range, what actions are going to occur. Let's see what actions we have available. Coming here, we have add lead, which will create the record as a lead inside an external CRM. If you were using the Sales Fusion CRM, it does not do anything. Add new task would create a task for the owner of the record. Add opportunity would create an opportunity for the owner of the record. Add to campaign allows you to drop them into a trigger campaign to nurture them a little bit further. Send alert will send a web activity alert to the owner of the record, letting them know that that person has had web activity. And it goes again to the owner. But you can choose to copy the alert to a geo, or you can copy the alert to a role. Remove from campaign allows you to remove the person from a nurture. Add to a distribution list allows you to add them to a distribution list. You can also remove them from a distribution list. Update contact lead allows you to update fields with particular values. Push to external CRM tells the system to create a push with a record that already exists inside of an external CRM. And then you can also choose to suppress the alert to the owner, which means that the alert would not go to the owner, but it would still go to anybody if you were copying it to a geo or a role. So for this one, I would probably say add to campaign because it's a low interest. I would find my trigger and I would hit save. Maybe that's all I want to do there. Let's create another group. I'm going to select new, and I'm just going to, for our testing purposes, just do a low and a high. So we'll say a high interest. Again, you can put in a scoring summary, so I'm just going to copy that and paste it right here. We then have the begin range, and of course we have our end range. And if this is your only or last scoring group, then you need to represent infinity using the 999. Maybe at the high level, I want to remove them from the nurture. Maybe I also want to create a task for the owner. So I'm going to create a task. You can also customize the task and hit save. Lots of options here. Let's hit save and return. And we have our contact scoring profile created. The implementation of a scoring profile is actually pretty easy. It's the thought process that you really have to put into what you're going to be scoring on. How many points are you going to score on, and what actions are you wanting to have occur as that score is accumulating? To assist you in this, I do have a lead scoring prep questions document that is available on the Learning Management Center under the recorded videos under Lead Analyzer. This quick 2-page document walks you through the thought process, gives you a little idea of what you should be thinking about. Are you interested in knowing when unknown people touch your website? What pages are important to you on your website? Do you have any PDFs that you would want to score on? What activities do you consider to take part in turning a person into a qualified lead? This should be a document that you should download and walk yourself through with or without your sales team. I would highly recommend with your sales team. And brainstorm together before you implement your scoring profile. Also keep in mind that scoring profiles are not anything set in stone. You might set it up and you might want to sit back and watch and analyze it. See how everything is going. See if you're getting qualified leads or if your leads are not qualified, and that will let you know if you need to tweak or adjust your scoring just a little bit. As always, we have our toolbox. Underneath the help, we have our Learning Management Center, which if you've never accessed before, you will need to register and create your own username and password. This will give you access to resources and tools to improve your Sales Fusion 360 experience. And we also have our help guide, which is an online help manual, which is used for a quick reference. Very good walkthrough guide if you want to read more about lead scoring and how to set it up. I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful